We have something that's kind of important. We do this with all our guests, and Krista, you are the guest of honor. You're from a place that doesn't technically actually exist. Canada is a made-up place, but I do know that you guys have some very unique animals there, and we like to talk about unique things from the culture. Hey, Ben, are you from Canada? Why don't you let the person that's from Canada talk about Canada? Krista, what's your favorite Canadian animal? We want to hear. We want to know.
My favorite Canadian animal? I've never actually thought about it, but I'm just going to have to say the first thing that comes to mind, which is a moose.
Is that
what did I tell you? What did I frickin' tell you? What did I tell
you? Why don't you let the woman speak and actually have an opinion, Ben?
Ducks. Canadian bear. I don't know.
What about, are you reading chat? Are you reading animals out of the chat?
Well, actually, we do have such thing called Canadian ducks, Canadian bears, because it's true. When I went to Florida as a kid, I was like, Mommy, Daddy, how come the ducks look different here? They're different. So
what about Canada geese? How do you feel about Canada geese?
Canadian
geese?
I was gonna say Canadian, but then I was like, no, it's just Canada.
Canadidic is fucking amazing. Canadidic. Yeah.
Canadidic geese.
Because they're actually called Canada geese, not Canadian, right?
Yeah, no, they're called Canadian geese.
Nope. Are they?
Yeah.
No.
She's from Canada, Ben. Why are you telling her she's wrong?
Because he's right.
Canada's not freaking real.
Let me
but
look
she
at this
still
up.
exists in an imaginary world. She still knows the names of the things.
It is Canada geese.
It is.
It is.
Well, we say Canadian geese.
Oh, I guess you can say it both ways.
I mean, the Scottish did it. Well, we don't have eggs. We have Scotch eggs. You literally just put the name of your country in front of something and then claim it's your own. It's like, well, the geese everywhere. No, but these are special Canadian geese. You don't understand. They did it with the same thing over there. It's like, well, we don't know what to name this place. We'll just call it France. That'll do. That's like, well, France is over here. No.
We do have a Canadian duck on our $2.
$2.
Or I think it's a $1.
Both. Are your $1 coins?
We have $1 coins, and so they're called Looney and Tooney. So we have.
No, they're not.
Looney
Don't make
and
Tooney.
I promise.
That's a real thing.
This definitely sounds made up. You're actually convincing me that none of this is
Look
real.
it up. Look up Canadian.
Ridiculous.
Canadian Looney and Tooney.
Yes. Tooney. I've never heard of that before. Wow.
That's
my favorite thing, though.
Okay, so let me ask this then. Okay, because what was it like coming to America for the first time? Was it a fun experience, a bad experience? Lethal, last time Lethal was on the show, he said that we're super basic here in America and we're basically just the bro of the world. Right. Was that your experience?
I want to say that my experience was a little bit different than other people around Canada because of the province I live in, which is Quebec. And here it's strictly French, and they want to make it even more French. And so I've been traveling to America since I was a kid, and I've always been jealous of people living there because I used to travel to Florida, which they have Disney World. And, so as a kid, naturally I wanted to live there. But as an adult, it's like, wow, look at the freedom that a lot of Americans have. And, as I mentioned, I live in Quebec, so it's like I didn't grow up at a Disney store. I didn't grow up with a lot of stores, mainly because they don't have ones that are too English based. So definitely and same thing goes for fast food chains. We don't have Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A. But other places in Canada do have this stuff. So I'm not speaking for all Canada. I'm just speaking for the province itself. So definitely going to America is like a theme park for me in a way, because I'm so happy. And it's like I point out the little things like, oh, look, that sign is in English. I could read it. I don't have to translate it. So it's like little stuff like that. And
what kind of place is this?
It even goes for me being envious as a teenager because I couldn't work at my favorite places that I wanted to. Like, for instance, teenagers when they have jobs, it's like the movie theaters. I've always wanted to work at my favorite locations, but being in Quebec, you have to work in the back if you're not fluent in French. So
oh wow.
yeah, it was definitely like a different experience than most people around Canada and America growing up. Yeah.
And
Well,
is that
here,
a law,
if you don't,
or is that a social thing that you must speak French at front of house?
Sorry, what was that? What was
Is it the law that you've got to speak French at front of house, or is that like
it?
just a socially accepted?
Well, it's a mix of both. So it's whoever's really like running the show, like Mayor and stuff, because we have something, and I know Steven Crowder talks about this, but we have something called the language police.
Yes. So does France as well. So you'd say it is innately French.
Yeah, so it's like a running meme, and there's a lot of people moving away from Quebec and going to other places in Canada and, even further, like America. And so people are really starting to leave here. And there's like a whole controversial thing happening right now because they're trying to change everything completely French. Like your kids have to go to French school as children and like all these different things. I remember 3 years ago, there was this whole thing on the news, which was so dumb. So, when you go to a children's playground and before you go down like the slide, there's like those little twirly things, and they had, all the planets like Mars, and they had the moon, and it says, in English, like Jupiter, whatever.
Mhm.
There was like a protest to change that from English to French.
Wow.
Yeah.
wow.
So they're really, really strict on it. And to the point where it's like you can't even open up a business in English lettering.
Crazy.
Yeah.
that's awful.
I think you were telling me about this, Crystal, last time we were in Florida. Like the police there are pretty crazy, right? Like the French police.
As far the language police, yeah.
Yeah, the language police. That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of nuts. I mean, we don't like over here. It's just if you don't speak English, we shame you and then we put you in the back.
See,
but
we have a similar thing in Wales because Welsh is dying out. They're so desperate to keep Welsh alive that they're sort of by law making like all street signs must be there, all road things must be there in the same one. But my favorite thing is a lot of Welsh people don't speak Welsh. So you get cases of like there's a road sign that in Welsh actually has this guy's like answer phone message because he just phoned it up and the guy spoke his like, can you please leave a message after the beep? And then it got translated into Welsh and put on a sign. And that the ultimate one is, on roads where it's like look left and look right, depending on which way the traffic. In Welsh, it tells you to look left, which is where all the traffic's coming from. And in English, it said look right, so everyone gets run over. It was amazing. It's like it's one of the things where the Welsh are like, I don't actually know if that was an accident or deliberate. I wouldn't put it past people.
Welsh is a beautiful language, though.
Yeah, you get a lot of spit on you when you're talking to him. Dod Wells.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we just kind of take it for granted here in America that we have a lot of freedoms, and I mean, the thing is, we do pretty much shame anybody that doesn't speak English.
You understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Unless you go into certain places where they obviously don't speak English, and that you're like outnumbered, and then you just don't go to those places like nail salons here and stuff. A lot of nail salons are owned by like certain types of people. I'm not trying to stereotype, but it is the stereotype, and they absolutely do talk about you in their language. 100%. And like where I'm from, like where I lived in Michigan, there's a very, very, very large Hispanic community. And like if I was one of the only people there that didn't speak Spanish, they absolutely talk about you because everybody watches you walk in the room. They all look at each other and say things, and then they look at you.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
And you're like,
cool. Exactly.
Cool. That's awesome.
They have that little mischievous smile. Interesting.
Lori. Okay, well, were there anything like that for you, Crystal? Like things that we call things here in America that are different in Canada?
So, if there are, I can't really think of any right now. But I know like the way that we speak. Like I know a lot of Canadians say a boot instead of about.
A boot.
Or I actually do not. I am probably like the only Canadian that doesn't say a.
Chris is the most based Canadian in the world.
Yeah, I know.
What you talking about?
X-ray girl gets really Canadian sometimes and goes sorry, and it's like what? It's sorry. No, sorry.
I don't say sorry. I say sorry. So I'm really it's like almost, and people say this all the time. Like they say you weren't supposed to be born in Canada. Like,
Well, what's my
you
favorite-
paused at the worst part of that sentence. People come up to me and say you weren't supposed to be born. I was like, that is harsh.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
no.
have
Yeah.
I have Canadian relatives, and they're like very, very Canadian, and
Oh, yeah?
they are very different than even just the way that you talk, Chris. It's pretty funny. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of you don't really have an accent all that much at all.
No.
Mm.
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't know you were from Canada. Like when I had first met you, I thought you were somewhere in America, and you're like, "No, I'm from Canada."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Wow, that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
Do you
lot
have a
of
French accent when you speak French?
A French accent when I speak French? Yeah, like it's the dialect that I know how to speak that way. But you know, the French in Quebec is so different than the French in France, and the same way goes for Italian speaking, like, you know, in North America versus in Italy. It's the dialect. So our French speaking is kind of like with a slang. So in France, they kind of hate that. Like they frown upon it. They think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
they think it's
it's
like
literally how British people look at us. And they're like,
yeah.
why do you
pretty
drop
much.
the U in that word?